It's the final.
Oh, man, the restraint. Shown incredible restraint.
What, for finishing the rest of that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Although now I have the old
Stuck in the head.
stuck in my head, so I'm going to need to, after this, play something else to get it in
Do
my
some
head.
cleansing. Yeah,
Exactly.
you gotta cleanse. Yeah. What would you cleanse that with? Give us an idea.
It's a good question. I think today, you know what? I'll pick something that you would appreciate. I'll go with No Hard
Right.
Feelings.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
The Abbott Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always a good one.
That's a deep song. All right. Let's not dwell there.
We often on our road trips play what we call music roulette. You know, each person takes a turn picking a song. Most of the time I usually pull that out, and everybody's always just like, we were playing and we had a guest, one of my daughter's friends were in the car, and so she wanted to play along as well. And so my daughter's like, oh, I know what he's gonna pick. And so I went in the absolute opposite direction. It pulled out some ska, and then probably about 5-6 words into the song, I realized that was probably one of the most inappropriate songs I could have picked. And,
Dude.
it was
so she used reverse psychology on you to pick something else, and you were immediately
so,
ashamed of the song that you picked.
Absolutely.
And she was shocked. So it didn't really work in her favor anyway.
Absolutely. Let me just say, you should never play certain bands that, regardless of if you've vetted that person or not, you should just play them in public when you have other people who may or may not have sensitive ears. Or
could have some safe for the car playlists already figured out ahead of time.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting because a lot of times what we'll do is we'll play off of each other. Somebody will do this and go, I'm going to one up you and I'm going to do this. And then somebody else is like, oh yeah, well, try this one out.
Yeah.
Then we go try to go deep obscure and deep cuts and all these other things.
It builds a good musical vocabulary doing it that way.
It really does, actually. And I am constantly impressed with the musical range that my children have. Now, I'll say that I at least started. Yeah. I will say that it all started off of my playlists, and then they just grew from there. And I've learned a lot from them. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Who's this?
Your daughter's a System Kid fan too, right?
She is very much a System Kid fan. And in fact, I actually showed her. I was telling you that I belong to it's called a Music League through Spotify. And there's about 12 people in our office it's almost like a fantasy football for music. And they've, arranging topics of deep cuts, music for film, all these different things. And so we're now at the very last one for this. And so it's basically, what is it? What did I say it was? Kind of like obscure music that you may not know about, but you should.
Right.
And of course, my daughter immediately says, oh, you've got to play System Kid. You're right, I do.
Everyone should know about System Kid. Yeah, all you listeners out there who don't know about System Kid, you got to look it up.
Yes. Yeah. And tell us, if you don't know, tell us why System Kid is important to this podcast.
There you go.
Homework for everyone.
We'll say no more at this point.
Exactly. But yeah, so, and now I've been trying to pull out, I was like, okay, so now I know one. What are the other ones going to be?
Mm-hmm.
I do think that
Any ideas?
Yeah, I've got at least one. At least one is going to be Tally Hall.
Okay, I don't know that
and
one.
If you don't know Tally Hall, Tally Hall is have you ever heard of Rob Cantor?
Yes.
So Rob Cantor was one of the 4 singers in Tally Hall. And Tally Hall was a college band started with Rob Cantor and a couple of other guys that he went to school with at University of Michigan. And kind of cool, takes its name after a strip mall in Michigan, not too far from where we live. And then their most popular, or I think they only really had like 2, maybe 3 albums. And it was Marvin's Marvelous Mechanical Museum was the name of but that is also the name of a place in this strip mall, Tally Hall, that it's an amazing place too. I will try to see if somehow we can share some photos of it. If not, we'll put a link in the show notes and let everybody go and look at it. It's basically, it's an arcade. It's got like old arcade games from like way back in the turn of the century, like 18th to 19th century, the early coin ops like Zoltar and stuff like that. But then they've got like these like really obscure ones, and then just, like the ones that you would know. And it's fun time out. And I think one time I was playing something that was giving out tickets, and I hit like the biggest jackpot that they gave out, and I think it spit out like 35,000 tickets.
Oh my gosh.
And so the kids were
what do
like,
you do with that?
Well, I started like, let the kids obviously pick what they wanted. And then I was like giving them to like random kids in the store and be like, here, take them, here, take them. They're like, really?
What was like the best thing that they had that you could buy with tickets in the little glass case?
To be quite honest with you, the kids, all they did is they went after the candy. It's just like, look, I've got like
free candy,
free
sugar rush.
Exactly. It's just like, look, I got a whole package of, what is it? Like Smarties. Yeah, like, I probably spent more money with the Smarties than, or with, playing the game than it would be to like go out and buy a industrial size package of Smarties.
That's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it works.
Yeah.
Last time we talked, you said you had a question for me. What was that?
Oh, so, we were talking, we've been talking about like our summer trips. You talked a little bit about your summer trip, and we both actually often go on these kind of like random trips. Mm-hmm. And I had stumbled across a video from one of our favorites, Van Neistat, and The Spirited Man. And this one was an older one that was probably a couple years old. And he was talking about his packing regime. And when he starts packing, when he starts planning and all of these other things. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it got me to think about the way that I pack or prepare for a trip. And I have this feeling that you and I are probably extremely different when it comes to this. You would think that as a project manager, project architect that does a lot of planning for projects to make sure that the old, 5 Ps in the Army, prior planning prevents piss poor performance.
Right.
That I would plan my trips, and that is the absolute furthest thing from the truth. We rarely, the only one in our house that actually like prepares maybe like a week in advance is my daughter.
Cormac, failing to plan is planning to fail. I don't know if you've ever heard that before.
I have. And it's not that,
Turns out I have heard that.
Not only have I heard it, I've probably lived it. And I've been on a bunch of different adventures, like with work and everything else. And sometimes I'm always, so like my wife's a overpacker. She'll like bring out a suitcase and she'll say, okay, I've got my stuff. And I'll look at it and it's like a big suitcase. And I'm like, we're going for 2 days, right? Like there's literally no reason for you to bring even 1/3 of that would be too much. And yet here you are. And she's like, oh, I'll need this, 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 and this. And then of course, I'll use this as an example. We just talked about my Chicago trip. And the Chicago trip was, we would wake up, everybody would like shower and get ready to go on the Sunday of, and then we would get there and the girls would go to the concert and all of that other stuff. And then we would like spend time. We would spend the day there on Monday, probably, maybe a little bit on Tuesday. But for the most part, everybody was just kind of like tired and stuff and wanted to kind of get back. Both of the girls were like, I just want to get back to my doggy and stuff. And so it ended up being that we essentially were there, did most of like our sightseeing and stuff on Monday. That was it. Think about it. Like you're already dressed and ready to go on Sunday. So you basically have just got, your change of clothes on Monday and possibly you change of clothes on Tuesday, right? Nobody changed any of their clothes. Like, what? I mean, other than, they showered and stuff. But I mean, it was just like, there was no reason for everybody to, like, I had to go out and it would have been easier for four people, two of them children, to just have maybe like 2 duffel bags. Here's like clean clothes, here's like your toiletries, boom, that's it. And then all 4 of us could easily have put all of our stuff in 1 duffel bag. Now, every one of them had suitcases. How much stuff did you actually go through in any of your suitcases?
Yeah, I've done that where I've just forced a certain spatial limitation on everyone by saying, you 2 share this suitcase. You 2 you share this suitcase.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse and I, we share a suitcase. And that's it. That's all you get, like between the 2 of you, because then you get to take turns carrying it, helping out. But everyone doesn't have to carry it. It doesn't take up exponential amounts of space when you're getting from here to there and keep extra things to keep track of and all that kind of stuff. It's just becomes a nightmare.
I mean, so there was one where, so like this is the flip side of that, where rather than overpacking, I kind of use your example of kind of underpacking. There was something that in this video from Van Neistat that, again, we'll put a link in the show notes, but he had said something about, he had gone on a trip and it was a reasonably long trip and he had just packed clothes that he was wearing and a Swiss Army knife.
That was it.
And that was it. And so,
it was a flight too. So he like built a box that he put handles on. He shoved the knife in it and like checked that as baggage. So it had to be like a certain size for it to even be considered baggage, because it wasn't something he could even carry on. But it was just like he was going to be gone for a week or 2 and he took absolutely nothing. Mm. And I think the idea was that he would just get whatever he needed there. Right. But then his response to that was like, I spent way too much time shopping because everything's different over there. Oh, even the way you buy things is different. So you spend an inordinate amount of time actually doing shopping. Like you would think that's no problem. I could do that here with that. I would just go to the store and get exactly what I need. I know which store I need to go to, but he was in another country and it was a completely different experience.
Yeah.
It took up way too much time. And it was like, that was a stupid idea.
Exactly. And so I did try one of that on one of my trips to Saudi, and it was the one where we went to Alula, and we were actually intending, most of it was site survey. And the site surveying is literally 7 days in the desert, 1 day travel, 1 day to traveling, or actually 2 days traveling to the desert, and then 7 days in the desert. 1 day we met with the client, kind of had a dinner, and then, 2 days travel out. And, with the way that you had to kind of like travel this particular route, because there's no direct flights into Saudi Arabia. So we would typically go from Dulles to Frankfurt to some Doha to Riyadh, and then Riyadh basically to the other side of the country. And so, there's a lot of walking around, a lot of so I basically said, all right, I'm literally going to bring a duffel bag. And then the only other bag that I'm going to bring is my camera bag, because I'm kind of going there to be the documentary kind of person. I'm going to, photograph and all of that other stuff. So I had 2 camera bodies, a bunch of lenses and all that other stuff. And it was just like this, and it's literally sitting like on the floor next to me. So I kind of keep glancing over at it. Just a kind of like a little harness backpack type like lower backpack type camera bag. And that was it. That's all I did. And so what I ended up doing was I packed enough undergarments for the trip. But other than that, it was 2 pair of pants, 3 shirts, t-shirts, and socks. And I ended up washing everything every night. I would like wash all my stuff and, hang it up. I would say, okay, this is, and so basically I would like rotate the clothes that I was like wearing all the time just by doing that, because most of the time, I mean, it's just like, I'm not there dressing to impress somebody. I don't need a suit. I'm not going to be in meetings and stuff. I'm going to be in the desert. I am going to be hiking.
Right.
No one is going to really care how foul I smell, because they smell just as foul.
Oh, I can imagine. I can totally imagine that.
So, although that was also the trip that we had the luxury of being able to have our own Toyota Land Cruisers and be able to drive in and out of the desert, pretty much any and every time we wanted to. So, or sit in the air conditioning and stuff. So there was no real foulness.
I'm only an overpacker when it comes to equipment. I feel like
yes, you are.
Whenever I go on a trip, I take you've been there with me in New York and various AIA conference locations where I have like a full on camera bag with me with multiple lenses. And I've actually stopped doing that because I just got tired of that. If I do take a camera, like a real legitimate camera, I will just take 1 or 2 lenses now, but that's it. I'm not going to take all the possible stuff anymore.
I think that I actually did bring my camera bag when I last saw you in San Francisco, but I don't think I ever used it. I don't think I carried it around.
Yeah,
I think I got to, like in Chicago, I didn't bring it. I just used my iPhone.
I didn't bring it then to Chicago, and I didn't bring it to San Francisco. I just brought my phone because the phones have gotten so good.
Oh, yeah. Now, I will say definitely the last few AIA conventions, you've seriously overpacked, but it wasn't by choice. It was.
Yeah, I was going to I did.
You did. It wasn't me. But it definitely wasn't by choice.
It's because, we have a bunch of stuff to outfit a booth with.
Right? Exactly. So you had a bunch of stuff, and your actual stuff for you was small and
just a backpack.
Just a backpack.
Right.
But yeah. So okay, so
what's the question?
So with that, what's the question? All right, so we got that. Oh, neither one of us really are big fans of overpacking, regardless of how much our family loves to overpack. Bring way too much stuff. I even look at camping trips. I'm like, do we really need all of this stuff? I mean, this is a lot of stuff, and I don't know why we're bringing all of this, because will I be taking it out of? I take it out of the truck so that it's not in the truck, but it's never used. Like half of it's a tent, an air mattress, and a sleeping bag. That's usually what everybody needs. And
Van has this concept of perfect packing, right? Which is you use everything that you packed. That would be considered a perfectly packed trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And, and I don't know if I've ever perfectly packed for a trip either, because I never really know what's happening. Because the other question is about how much do you plan for a trip? Because a lot of times I will just, play it by ear. Like, so the Chicago trip, we didn't plan for anything. It was just like, we will stumble on whatever it is that we're going to stumble on.
Okay. I have 2 minds about this. And so I've done different things, but I think one of the things that Van states, and I think you said it earlier, was, or maybe you did, or maybe you didn't. I know you said this to me when you sent me the video, which was this kind of crazy idea that the day that you know about the trip, you begin packing. Yeah. So that could be years in advance potentially. And for him, it was about again, we'll link to this episode of his in the comment or for the show notes, but he was planning for this trip to Mexico. And in order to get to Mexico, I mean, the idea was to drive from Southern California all the way down Central America. And he was going to drive his Land Cruiser that needed an engine to be replaced before he even embarked on that trip. And so that's where he kind of used that as an example of how he begins his packing or his planning the day he knows about that he's going to be going on a trip. Even if he doesn't know the date when the trip is going to happen, he knows he's going there. He knows that that's the plan, and he begins to figure it out immediately.
Yeah.
I am not like that because I don't think my trips are that grand. But at the same time, I do start making a list in my reminders app for that specific trip of things that, so that as they come to my mind, which they come at random, uncontrollable times, when all of a sudden it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I could be meditating, I could be wee-whacking, I could be driving. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. Yeah. It's like, this thing is coming, this trip is coming, and you're going to need to take this thing. And I have to have a place to store that information. Because if I don't store that piece of information right then, I will lose it. It will be gone. And then I will be racking my brain at some point later. What was that thing that I absolutely had to bring on this trip? And that's happened as well if I don't have a place to write down. So I just started a new list. So like I have a list going already for the next trip that I'm going on. And it will just include usually gear and stuff that I don't want to forget to take. And it usually is location dependent, and that's why I make a list, because it's not the same as the list for the last trip. It's just not going to be the same.
So, where I'll go a little bit different, of course, as I commonly am with you, is the family got in the car. Now, we had all brought, our driver's license, which is the enhanced driver's license, so that if by some chance we decide we wanted to like cross the border into Canada, that we have that opportunity. We'll get in the car a lot. It will say, all right, north, south, east, west.
Where are we going? Oh,
no, we'll just say north, south, east, west. Be like, let's go west.
That's cool.
And then we'll just start driving there in whatever it is that we find. So we started driving. It's like, all right, we can start driving. And we were planning on just disappearing for 2 days, just going in and exploring. So everybody brought at least a change of clothes, and we brought the dog along. So Freddie had his food and stuff. So, we probably did more packing for Freddie than we did for anybody else.
Oh,
and
modern dog life is just absolutely insane.
Exactly. And so we were prepped for whatever we could potentially do.
Sure.
And so, yes, we did end up going to Canada, because as we were driving, I asked him, I'm like, what do you
Somebody said north.
Well, no. Well, actually, it's east for us.
You're in some weird place.
Yeah,
Canada's
exactly.
east. I can't believe there is, you are like, you're north of parts of Canada. That's just crazy.
Well, like that Journey song where they're talking about living in South Detroit. South Detroit is Windsor, Ontario.
Yeah, I'm just not so unfamiliar with that part of the country. It's
there
not
is
even a concept to me.
It's interesting because where we live, like Canada is either east of us or south of us, or both. Sorry, it's both. It is south of us and east of us. And the closer that I get,
there's a word for that. It's southeast.
Exactly. No, but it is east and south. Like if I were to drive south to Detroit, from
you have to
where
go
I
east
live
first before you go south, is what you're saying.
No, if I'm going to Canada, I have to drive south first, and then I can drive east.
Okay.
Or I can drive north and then east,
and then south again.
So like where I'm at, actually, there's a lake in between us. And it's not, right. It is technically part of the Great Lakes. It's Lake St. Clair. And we just need to drive in opposite directions. So
around it. Yeah.
So we decided, what the heck? We started driving. So we've got some things, we could just explore in Michigan. We used to do these trips. It's just like, hey, New York City is only 4 hours away. You want to drive to New York City? And they're like, oh yeah, sure. This was when we were still living in DC. And so I was just like, hey, that Chicago's 4 hours away from us, or Toronto's 4 hours away. And they're just like, well, we've never been to Toronto before. We've been to Chicago a couple of times, but we've never been to Canada. or never been to Toronto. We're like, all right, Toronto it is. And so we drove north and then drove east. And when we got to the border, the border guard, the Canadian border guard was just like, how long are you going to be in Canada? Or it's like, what is your business? We're just, out exploring around.
We have no plan. We're just.
Oh, so it was he was like, what brings you to Canada today? And we were just, we're just out exploring. He's like, how long are you guys going to be here? And we were like, probably about 2 days. And he's like, do you have a destination? I was like, yeah, we're driving to Toronto. And then he was just like, well, do you have a hotel? I'm like, nope. He's like, how long has this trip been planned? And I like pulled up my arm, looking at my non-existent watch. I'm like, about 10 minutes ago. And he's like, really?
People do that? Yeah,
people,
I think that is funny how
these people do this
concept.
Yeah, these people do it. And yes, I'm pointing at myself. These people do it a lot. That was literally like, it's like the music roulette that I was telling you about. It's just like, pick a song, pick a place. Let's start driving towards it.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a little bit about this before too. It's like, what's the next word that's coming out of your mouth? You have no idea what it is. You don't know the next thing you're going to think about, and yet something shows up. It's the same with this. I don't think it's any different, and yet that is a very foreign concept to us, I think, in general. I've done something similar but different in that when we go somewhere, there's a lot of things that we want to do, but we don't plan it all out itinerary style. Right. And it's just like the day comes, where are we going to go today? And it's not like the cardinal directions, like what you're saying, although I like that a lot. I might steal that for our next trip. But
you should.
The idea is like where we definitely want to hit these things. So which one are we going to go do today? And that to me is kind of that game of chance that you end up playing. Yeah. And then there's the road that you use to get to that thing, right? Which is it a major thoroughfare or is it the back road version of that? And I know you've talked about that as well, where it's like you intentionally take the back road because you're going to see things that most people never see, never experience. It's a slower pace. You actually see more. Those kinds of things I think are really important when you're out traveling as well.
We see in a lot of times we'll see a part or a perception of the country that we don't normally. It's like everybody thinks of, America, the strip malls and this, that, the other. And so many times we'll stumble on like these little small towns with these beautiful, because they had like historic markers all over the place when you're driving through, like say Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia. Basically this whole like area of like, we used to drive and we would drive past this and it's just like, this was the crossroads where General George Washington had met such and such a general for such and such a kind of like surrender. And we're like, this is cool. Like, right. How would we have known that this existed if
this is like the 99% invisible, always read the plaque motto that they have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, if you ever see a plaque, you like, the rule is you just have to stop and read it because there's something significant that happened there. And it's just that history that is otherwise forgotten about. There's nothing else pointing at anything to tell you that there's something worthwhile to know at that location.
Well, it's just like everybody looked at me again very foreignly when you remember, what was it, the 2019 AIA convention. I bring my recently graduated oldest son with me, and here we are, and they're just like, I would have brought my kids too, or something like that. And it's just like, well, we sort of have a plan here. It's like, he just graduated, and he's here with me because we flew across the country. We rented a car and we drove from Vegas to LA, hung out in LA, saw you and your family and some other friends that I had out there. And then basically said, okay, we live on the East Coast. We're now on the West Coast. Let's turn the truck around, point it the other direction, and let's just drive. We knew we had to go east this time. This was the game where we had to drive east.
Well, it just depends how long you want to take. I mean,
that was true too. That was true too. And so we spent 14 days driving back. I think, it was not 14 days total drive back. It was, I think, 10 days because some of those were the AIA convention. And then from there, but we did 14, we 14 days, which I think probably was both of our, mental limits of, because.
Totally. Oh man, I've hit those before.
Yeah, exactly. Because not every, so what was this? Okay. So I don't think it was you, but somebody had turned me on to basically looking up Atlas Obscura.
Oh yeah. Right.
And
such a great website.
An absolute great.
Get a book. Yeah.
So the website, I love the website. It's extraordinarily interactive. And basically you can just pin where you are. And it'll basically tell you so many different obscure things that are around or near you. You can plan out routes. And, we basically did the roadside oddities. We started driving back. We saw the world's biggest ball of twine. We saw the world's largest Van Gogh painting. All of these like really weird things, the geodetic center of the the geodetic center of North America. Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
And just like a variety of different things. And it was like nothing was planned. It was all back roads as much as we could. There were some times where you just couldn't go anywhere but, highway. But for the most part, it was all back roads. And there's so much, I would say there's like so much of like American history on the back roads, but there's actually also a pretty rich tapestry of American architecture, and I would never have seen it. My affinity for like stopping and pulling over and taking pictures of like buildings that are falling down and things like that. And that's sort of, that was sort of if you recall from my post that I was doing along that trip, it was very much, that off of Route 66, there was that abandoned water park.
Right. Right outside of Barstow.
Yeah, exactly. And we sat and we kind of like hung out there until we were sort of run off, which is another thing is like we were run off by a couple of junkies who were
guard. Oh, no. Yeah.
A couple of junkies. Not security, a couple of junkies. And, yeah. Like, of course, I don't want my son to be in kind of like some precarious situation, but no, in a way, weird things like that were,
what makes it an adventure.
It enriches the story, right? It's just like, totally. I never planned. I was talking to somebody and it's just like, there's like so many things that like go wrong on the trip and everything else. And I'm like, do they really go wrong? Or if it's just like, this was just something that you didn't plan. And so it's just another part that enriches the story when you're telling it. It's just like, I didn't plan on telling a story that, that was, right. A bunch of junkies running us off from some abandoned water park, but it's part of the story.
Yeah. When it actually comes to packing, I don't pack until we're really close. And my wife is the latest packer of them all. She packs after the time at which we were supposed to have left.
And that's what my wife does.
She hates it so much. She wants to avoid it so much. She will literally place any other non-priority thing in front of packing to put it off until it's just too late. And then she feels rushed, right? I get this response from her. It's like, you're rushing me. And it's like, well, we were already supposed to. And so now I've learned like, okay, we aren't leaving at that time. That is a time at which she will begin to pack, and then we'll leave whenever we leave. But when it actually comes to putting things into a space that is a car or the back of a car or a trailer or whatever, she is a master packer, even better than I am. I thought I was good. She's way better. And so it's like, and what's kind of cool, I guess, that I've learned to accept is just let her do it because she is so damn good at it. So I try to do it to save time because I know that her thing is going to have to be the last thing that goes in. And so I'm working on it. And then she'll get out there and she'll want to actually repack the whole thing as well because she can do it better than I can.
Mine is the opposite, where everybody just brings the bags out and sets them by the truck and just, Dad, you're going to be picky.
You can take care of this, please. That'd be great.
Well, I mean, it's not that they're, being lazy or anything. It's just they know that I'm pretty picky.
You're particular about it.
So I have let them pack, and they'll like pack it up and they'll fill the whole back up. And that, you know, fine, everything fits, right? Except for I have some weird quirk, I guess we can call it, that I use my mirrors. I don't use like backup cameras and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And
you do have a modern fancy car, but yeah, like getting used to that whole backup camera thing, that
just
was
not
hard for our generation, isn't it?
I don't like things blocking my rear view mirror. I need to see everything. And so they'll just like pack everything all the way up to the roof.
I gave this up a long time ago because we always have too many things that go all the way up to the roof. There's no way that I can ever get it to where I can see out the roof.
I've mastered the luggage Jenga.
Yeah.
Luggage Tetris. That's a better way of explaining it.
Well, it is kind of Jenga, right? Because when you need to get something out, unless you are so good at actually packing things in the right order so that the thing that you need next is on the top. Because, I mean, how often does that? I don't think people are. Yeah. Are people that good? Are there people out there that are that good? I don't know, man. If they are, I would love to hear it.
I will say that I always say, what are you guys going to need if we stop? And they're like, oh, well, I want to make sure I have this or I make sure I have that. And those are literally like, I will line them up behind the headrests of wherever they're sitting. So they literally can just like reach back there. It's just like Magdalena has a army green bag that she, stuffs all of her stuff, her sketchbooks, her headphones, whatever is in there. Yeah. And so if that's
carry-on items,
exactly.
We have carry-on bags for all of our kids for the car, right? We're not talking about air travel right now.
Oh yeah, exactly.
One year when all the kids were little, we bought them these identical backpacks, but every one was a different color.
Mm-hmm.
And these backpacks also kind of fold inside out and zip up into the small pockets so that they're, when you're not using it, it just goes, you just fold it up and it gets put away like a parka or something. But then when they use it, every kid has it and it is their carry-on bag. It goes right on their lap. It's like their pillow and that bag. And that's where their water bottle goes. It's where anything that like you're talking about goes. And that's what they get to take with them. But will it fit behind their head? I don't think so. We're usually on a 3-week-long trip, and all that space is already spoken for.
So obviously, being in the Army, I learned how from basically day one of basic training, I learned how to pack tightly. And so I learned how to master roll everything. Roll your shirts, roll your socks, roll your pants, roll everything. And you literally can reduce, like say if you
volume.
have like
it's about volume, right?
Exactly. And I feel like that over the years has been the most successful thing that I've been able to pass along to them. That's
how it starts, which is the roll, the tight, the compressed, the least amount of volume. But then at some point along the trip, it becomes the stuff version of that. Just stuff it in there, just cram it back in there, just jam it down with it, like stand on it and sit on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There was this, I don't know if you've ever seen, well, I mean, now I'm sure they're much smaller, more dense and stuff, but the sleeping bag that I had in the Army was this big, massive down sleeping bag that weighed an obscene amount of poundage, as well as it was huge. And probably about the second year I was in, they came up with a sleeping bag cincher that like cinched it down. And we thought that was like the greatest thing in the world.
Like straps on the outside of it?
You basically, it was you almost like strap like a burrito. And then you just start pulling on the straps and it slowly but surely compresses it down. And we thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. It was, phenomenal. And so that's sort of how I think about packing is like, how can you take this big stuff and just reduce it down to a little small thing so that it makes it easier?
Through the act of compression.
The act of compression. I think the only thing that doesn't get compressed is my camera gear.
And a bag of chips.
Right? And a bag of chips.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true too.
Nobody likes that. Nobody likes those crumbs. Bag of crumbs.
Gotta. Oh, that's why we switched to Pringles.
I need a rigid container.
Exactly.
For
We're
and they
not going to
need to
just
nest. So yeah, it's like the most dense chip per square inch that you can possibly have without a bunch of extra space. Yeah,
exactly,
good idea.
exactly.
Can't put
But
those things in my body, man. You're just killing yourself.
I mean,
And
you gotta
food.
go. You gotta go some way, somehow. It might as well be with some sour cream and onion Pringles.
The goal is to be alive for as long as possible, Cormac.
Wait, who said that?
I just said that. Oh man.
This is the man who dangles off the side of rocks.
Yeah, it's called living, my friend.
LIVIN.
Oh, good chat. That was fun. Thank you for coming along this journey in our summer road trip series of Archispeak.
Yeah.
All right. Next time we will speak about something else summer related because we're on a summer vacation, not vacation, trip. I don't know. What's the right word to say? What's the way to say that? We're on a kick. We're on a summer kick.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
I think I sort of mentioned this to you on the last episode, but I have actually planned our next trip, or at least the destination of the trip.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if I should tell you or tell you later.
Maybe a cliffhanger here.